here's what ended up happening with these two sellers. The second you go into foreclosure, it becomes public notice. Everybody on the planet knows that you're in foreclosure at this point. That's a problem because what happens is you start getting phone calls and text messages and phone calls and text messages from all these investors. Okay, so here's what happens. All right, so last night, Eric and I are jumping on the plane and I get a text message from one of my students. And the text message is, hey, it's an emergency. It's an emergency. Oh my gosh, the world is falling apart, basically. Here's what he said. His name's Aaron. And I woke up this morning, I did a 5 a.m. Zoom yelling at him in front of 300 people because of how poorly he's handled this. And it's because he doesn't pay attention, right? You ever know people that just don't pay attention? Eric? Okay. He says, Pace, this is extremely urgent. Foreclosure, auction is in Florence tomorrow. They're $26,000 behind. There's all this equity, blah, blah, blah. If you had time, can you please jump on a call ASAP? This is what he's asking, okay? So there's a house in Florence, okay? There's two guys that are living in this house, James Sr. and James Jr., okay? And he says, hey, I've been working on this property for like the last 3 weeks, and these guys are gonna get foreclosed on tomorrow. Guys, how long does foreclosure go on? Months. Months. It goes on for months. So here's the date. Let's say that they stop paying payments here, okay? Payments stop right here. It literally goes on for an average of like 3 to 6 months, okay? So here's what ended up happening with these two sellers. The second you go into foreclosure, it becomes public notice. Everybody on the planet knows that you're in foreclosure at this point. That's a problem because what happens is you start getting phone calls and text messages and phone calls and text messages from all these investors, real estate agents, brokers, bankruptcy attorneys, everybody you can imagine starts hammering you with phone calls. So along the line, here's what ends up happening, right? There's these moments where these sellers go through, and these types of sellers that are in foreclosure, I call them the ostrich sellers. Why do I call them an ostrich seller? They put their head in the sand and they think this day that the sheriff shows up at my house is not going to happen. Okay, so one of these investors says to James and James Jr., hey, I can help you and I can help you stay in the house, okay? All these other people over here are saying, I wanna buy the house and you can leave and I'll buy the house at a discount. Yet somebody comes along and says, you stay in the house and I'll buy it from you. Okay, great. So what happens is these little moments along the way, James goes and invests 2 months of his time with this guy. Okay, so 2 out of the 3 months are eaten up, basically gone with this guy. I don't know his name. Let's just call him Eric, because Erics don't pay attention, okay? So this guy, Eric, says, I can help you stay in the house, whatever else. And now what happens is James Jr. and James Sr., this is very typical of this industry. It's like this exact foreclosure situation happens all the time. It's like 99% what happens with foreclosures. So now James is getting all these phone calls from other people. Is James talking to them and hearing other solutions at this point? Or does he believe Eric is gonna take care of it? He starts ignoring all these other people. So for 2 months, nobody else can get a hold of this guy. It's Eric that's like gonna save the day. So 3 days ago, Eric calls these guys and goes, I'm out, have a good life, and bails on this family. They're both disabled. They have diabetes. One of them's missing a foot, and they're both out of work because they can't even physically move, right? They have like a genetic disability. It's a major problem in both their lives. So they're living on disability. They fell behind. And this guy, Eric, is like, I'm out. Happens all the time. My student is like, has 3 days now, right? So this is where I get frustrated because he has 3 days before the auction to say, I'll help you stop the foreclosure. So my student, instead of going into my wife, you guys know that that's what Laura's like specialized in, right? Stopping foreclosures. So inside my mentorship, every Monday, Laura comes in for 2 hours and just helps people stop foreclosures. And she shows people exactly how to do this every Monday for 2 hours, okay? So Aaron, my student, sends me a text message an hour after Laura was already live in the mentorship for 2 hours, private, that doesn't go on YouTube. She's like sitting there, she goes, all right guys, I'm just gonna do Q&A. And Tanisha, one of my students, was like, it was a really amazing Q&A, but nobody had any questions. I'm like, yeah, Aaron had this under contract for 3 days, completely ignores that Zoom was going on. He could have had my wife help him. So he ignores the first clue. He sends me a text with his Android. I'm like, bro, I'm taking off. We're not gonna be able to communicate about this. So I'm like, fine, Don't expect this miracle, but text my wife and see if she can help. So my wife gets on the phone with him, coaches him along, gives him all these links and tells him what to go do, okay? So this is what you have to go do. In this 3 days, step number 1 is you have to get a proof of funds. Do you know what a proof of funds is? Okay, so let's say the bank is gonna foreclose on this house. They will extend the foreclosure if you can prove to them that you have the actual money to buy the property and you just need some time to put some affairs in order to buy the property. So my student is like, I don't know where to find the proof of funds. It is emailed out every single Friday. It is in the announcement section. It's in the course. It's everywhere, literally everywhere. Instead, he goes and downloads a free proof of funds off some website. Check this out. This is my proof of funds, okay? My proof of funds with my students, this is what's so crazy to me. I actually go into my Subto. If you go to Paste Morby proof of funds or proof of funds, boom, right here. You just type it in. You've got my proof of funds right here. And then right here. And then this is the best part, okay? I actually made a Loom video logging into my bank account and showing the banks, hey, I have $3 million sitting in the bank account right now, ready to deploy. Here's the blah, here's the this, here's the that. And it's a Loom video they can send to the bank of me logging into my bank account. Instead, my student goes outside of all of that and downloads some free proof of funds off a free website. I'm like, bro, you're going out of your way to not pay attention. Like even with all these things I'm giving to you. And he's like, you're right, you're right, you're right. So last night, my wife gets on the phone with him. She solves the problem, or so I thought. And he then sends me a text. He's like, she was amazing. This is great. I can't believe I missed all this stuff. I wasn't paying attention. You're right. I've been just blah, blah, blah. So I go, come in tomorrow. I'll do a 5 a.m. Zoom for you. And I coach him through and he goes, okay, I got it. Meanwhile, the foreclosure is happening in 6 hours from that time. This guy's gonna have the sheriff come pull him out of the house. Like boom, you're out, get out. Boom, 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 get out of the house, right? They've been in foreclosure this whole time. There's no more waiting period. Like, you've had the notices. You're being told, like, sheriff's gonna come and kick us out. What ends up happening is he sends me a text this morning as I'm I'm moving around and I'm about to jump in the shower. He sends me a text and he goes, Pace, it's Aaron. I have nobody that can help me other than you. And I'm like, we have 300 Subto students in Arizona. He says, will you get one of your team members, like Molly, to drive down to Florence to pick up my seller and take him down to the trustee and stop the foreclosure? I need you to have it done in basically 2 hours. And I'm like, bro, I don't even know what to say to that, because if I say no, then I'm a piece of... Even though you shouldn't be entitled to expect that. If I say yes, then I waste my whole entire day. I mess up my meetings that I already had planned, and it creates a ripple effect of my day and your day. So Aaron, do you not understand? These people are on payroll and they expected me to be in a meeting for you, but instead with them, instead I dropped everything I'm doing. Bro, I'm not even wearing underwear. Okay, so what do you need? You need proof of funds and you need to talk to the trustee, okay? So the trustee is the person that handles the foreclosure. So you gotta let the trustee know, hey, like we got all this stuff, here's what's going on, blah, 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 right? So he said, this is what Aaron says. He says, I've been calling the trustee for 3 days and I can't get a hold of anybody. And so we go down there, I get my proof of fund from the bank, I do all the things, and I'm like, all right, let's go to the trustee. I'm on my way to driving to the trustee. We literally have like 6 minutes left until he loses his house. And I call the trustee, I go through the menu, and I actually listen to the menu, and the menu says, hey, if you're gonna try and stop the foreclosure today, press 3. So I press 3, I'm on the phone with somebody in 3 seconds. I talk to them, I go, man, we haven't been able to get a hold of you in 3 days. They're like, what file number? And I tell them the file number. He goes, we have no record of anybody calling us ever. So I'm texting Aaron, I'm like, bro, what the freak? What's going on? He pressed 1. He was so impatient, he just kept pressing 1 100 times to try and get to an operator, and they just kept kicking him out of the system. Like, you didn't even listen to the menu. In 3 days of calling them, you didn't listen to the menu 1 time. So I get a hold of them. They go, you better get down here right now. You have to have proof of funds physically there. So I get down there and we rush in there, and I'm like holding Corbin. And Corbin's like, let's go, let's go, let's go. Are we gonna do it? Corbin, did we stop the foreclosure today? Yeah. Say we did it.
Go.
Tell mom, say, I'm gonna save this guy's house.
I'm gonna save this guy's house.
Say, he's gonna lose his house.
He's gonna lose his house.
But I'm gonna save him.
I'm going to save him.
So I'm holding her and I've got the proof of funds and I'm running and doing all this stuff. Here's what ends up happening. So I get in there and they go, dude, the lady looks up from her desk. She looks up and she goes, really? You have 2 minutes. This house was gonna be lost in 2 minutes. Like, why did you wait this long? This lady says. Anyway, she goes, I can't guarantee. She goes, you need to call us back in like 20 minutes. So I submit the thing. I go out in the parking lot. I call them, which is the video I sent you. I go, oh my gosh, so he got an extra 30 days. He starts crying, he starts bawling. So first and foremost, wholesalers, right? I'm gonna do a whole video about how wholesalers that don't understand foreclosure should not be working with sellers that are in foreclosure. Have you ever had Jamil, have you ever had a seller or a wholesaler that sends you a deal and the seller's about to lose their house in like 1 day?
Yeah, and they haven't got the foreclosure stalled or postponed.
Right.
Yeah, they have no idea how to do it even.
Right, and so that's what I just dropped everything I was doing to go do that.
Wholesalers sell me a deal, not mention that they thought just executing the purchase contract was going to stall the foreclosure. They didn't understand that you had to do an extra step to do it. So we sign a contract, they think the foreclosure is being stalled. All of a sudden, the house gets sold at trustee sale. We go to try to close, and the seller no longer owns the property. It's now an REO. And so
REO means the bank already took it back.
So it's one of the most
it's so common
situations because the wholesaler without their education has completely ruined a situation for a seller that could have been easily solved.
This is, bro. So this is what happened. We had a wholesaler on this deal. All the wholesalers are calling the sellers and they're saying, I can help you, I can help you, I can help you. Once they commit to one wholesaler, they tell everybody else, like, leave me alone, or they just ignore them.
Right.
So this guy, the sellers went through 2 months of thinking this guy's gonna take care of him, and 3 days before the auction happens, these guys bail and they go, we're out, see ya, good luck. And it's down in Florence. These guys physically have no capability of moving. So I had to drive down there this morning. I have no underwear on. And I take Corbin with me and I go over to the courthouse and I get the foreclosure stop. Literally, the lady looks up at me and she goes, you have 2 minutes until this house was gonna be sold. Where were you? What's going on? And she looked at me and she's like, you said you're responsible for this, man? She says to me, she says, how dare you? And I was like, it wasn't me, it was the freaking wholesaler. So anyway, if you're a wholesaler, guys, you guys got to get educated on the foreclosure process. You have to stop or postpone the foreclosure. Buy enough time. You need to know the auction date. The wholesaler didn't even know the auction date, right? So when he called the seller and says, I'm canceling on you, we couldn't sell the house or we couldn't figure it out, the seller says to him, do you know I'm getting foreclosed on in 3 days? Like, what am I going to do now? And the seller's response, or the wholesaler's response was like, I had no clue. If you're a homeowner watching this, like, make sure that you're telling all these wholesalers, put $1,000 down minimum on non-refundable deposit. Like, I just sick of this crap. You forget it because I haven't been in the trenches for like a couple of years. Jamil and I have been traveling around the country doing stuff. But then when I get back in the car and I go to these appointments like I used to back in the day, 7, 8, 9 years ago, I used to freaking go to all these appointments. I was so close to it. And did you see how emotional that dude was today, Jose? We did a testimonial with him. He's like, I thought I was losing everything. I had no idea. These guys strung me along.
What's the plan? Are you gonna buy it Subto?
One of my students is buying it Subto.
Perfect.
Yeah, a student in Alaska is virtually wholesaling down here. He's keeping it, he's gonna sell it on a wrap. So anyway, if you're a wholesaler, guys, please understand and watch foreclosure videos. In fact, Jamil and I might do a YouTube video. Make a comment down below. We might do a video on the foreclosure process and bring in a couple of foreclosure specialists to walk through and talk through the process, the trigger points and the things you really need to do and the things that you need to accomplish when you're wholesaling with foreclosures. We'll see you in the next video.